A lot of people that like have heard that like I'm a big horror fan or whatever, like, oh, you must be this like you can sit through anything, which like to be fair, I have sitting through some like pretty rough movies.
Yeah.
But but I get scared very easily. And like when I go with either you or some of my other friends, like you guys won't be as you'll be a little bit more like like unsettled or
Right.
whatever. But I'm just like, whoa! Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben. Obviously, sorry for the poor lighting. I'm in my kitchen right now, but I just wanted to give a preview of my podcast I just did with my housemate Dan. It was really cool, really fun. Dan has a lot of cool insight on movies. I'm really passionate about movies in general and just all that stuff. So it was a really fun convo. I hope you dig it. Thanks for coming on, bro. Appreciate it.
No problem.
You're the first housemate that's on here, so
Oh, Shane isn't
yeah,
on
Shane
here?
hasn't been on here yet.
Okay.
So I need to figure out what topics I want to talk to him about. But we'll probably just like talk about like golf and
Yeah.
whatever drinks we're concocting these days. But yeah, so I had you on so we could talk about like movies and stuff. We've been watching a good amount. Obviously lately because we live together and stuff. But I thought it would be a cool idea if we just kind of mentioned like why we kind of like movies in general. But before we do that, I just wanted to bring up like how we first met. So eighth grade NCA, right?
Right.
I was the new kid. You had been there for how many years?
That would have been my second year. I gave him the seventh grade.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and this was back when like we didn't even become friends till like probably high school, or
Yeah, no, you and Joe, I think. I didn't really hang out with that much in middle school.
yeah.
It was once we got to high school.
Some people that don't know you are sometimes like, wow, like that. What? Like even like my sister Abby that was here the other day. She's like, wow, I actually like saw Dan around. I'm like, yeah, Dan does exist. He does talk. He does all these things. Like sometimes people think you're you're mute or whatever. I'm like, dude, that's not true at all. And I remember probably our first like one of our first times that we became like wicked, or we started our like friendship and whatever was when we did like the first sleepover in high school where it was your birthday party.
It was my birthday party. We were playing
Yeah.
Forza in the main room.
Yeah.
Joe was swearing like crazy and making my parents very angry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this was 10th grade sheltered NCA kids, so like we were all very much lived pretty strict lives at that point or whatever, and it's downhill from there and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I remember it was funny because like when we were first kind of getting to know each other, I was like, wow, it's like, dang, you're really knowledgeable about not just like movies, but just like stuff like even like world history facts. Like, and that's another funny thing about whenever I have Shane on. It's like he's like a huge like guy that's into the presidents,
Right,
and it's like, Ben, name 20 presidents, and I'm like, okay, easy, and then I'm like, wow, it's actually like a lot harder than like I would normally think.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because you wouldn't expect it. He's not like a super history buff in other ways. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the presidents, he'll just list
I know
them
he'll
off
just be
and
like bam, 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 and it'll be like, wow, did not expect that from you. So that's one thing that was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I watch history videos and stuff all the time on YouTube.
Yeah.
I retain like 20% of it, unfortunately.
Wasn't Epic Rap Battles of History? Wasn't that big when we were in high school? Like
That
when
was
it first
big.
started coming out? I mean, that stuff is informational, whatever.
It wasn't my
That was kinda
primary
funny.
source, but like yeah, when one would come out and I didn't know who people were, I'd look it up.
Yeah, but then I remember even a couple of them where it's like Rasputin versus, and then I don't even know who the Rasputin rap was, but I'm like, who is Rasputin or whatever. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, that was so cool, man, because we started, just from like mowing down like Freshetta and Mountain Dew, and like just playing a ton of like Madden or whatever. Whenever we were doing like even slavery FIFA or whatever at your house and whatnot, that's
Right.
kind of from there on. I was like, cool, like. I think what it probably started, man, was when we were doing Shakespeare projects. Because I remember we would, it was like a forced thing to do. It'd be like, okay, pick, a scene from whatever we were reading, whether it was Much Ado About Nothing, Hamlet, Macbeth, or I'm sure there was another. I think I got
Othello. one year.
Othello, yeah. Our senior year. I should honestly link that down below. Our Othello. That was our best.
That was our best. That was our magnum opus.
Yeah, and you really
Filming.
helped me with all that stuff. 'Cause I'm like, Dan, like I want to shoot this like multi-angled and stuff, which is funny because even in like 2016, like there were so many other options you could use to like film stuff at that point. But we were just like, I want to film, because they would have a lot of Shakespeare scenes because like in general like it became like fun, and you could add like silly elements and whatever. But usually it would like the bare minimum was like okay like you have to like memorize lines, you have to act out a scene, like try to like I think there was a little bit of like have fun when you're doing it, right?
Well, we definitely pushed the having fun part.
Yeah.
Because, like our Othello video, we had Joe driving through a stack of boxes with his truck,
Yeah.
and we had all these special effects that took me hours to do. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Took you hours to do. Didn't take
Took-
anyone else any
It
time.
took me hours to make like the Sports Center
Yeah.
overlay over everything.
Yeah.
And even still, I watched that video and I'm like, I could have done this. I could have done that.
Yeah. You're like,
We
oh,
could have gone further with it.
Yeah.
We could have filmed more days because we kind of were running
Yeah,
out of
dude,
time.
we did a huge day. Didn't we get to your house at like 8 or 9? It was like
Yeah.
9 or 10 in the morning, and then we shot till like almost dark, which was probably like 5, 6.
Probably, yeah.
And like, yeah, we went like your house. We did. Oh, well, I'm getting it confused because the Othello one was
Well,
it all one day?
we had one day of shooting at the school where we.
Yeah,
spent,
so
like,
we
the
did it over a
first-
couple days. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you were the mailman. You're coming in like buzzing yourself in. Yeah.
But that was like just the opening scene. I think the whole rest of the video was all filmed in one day.
Yeah.
That was so much fun.
That's an amazing thing too, man. That I think about some of these.
When it comes to movies, it's just like think about like like actors and getting them all set up with their lines and whatever, and then like whatever.
He's not having a brain fart, but whatever, stunts that have to be done and whatever else going on. And then we would just watch this movie Cloverfield, which I want to get into like why like we like movies, like some of our favorite ones and whatever. But just the fact of like setting up and figuring out like places to shoot, even locations, is crazy. So like when I was so for people that don't know, this movie Cloverfield came out in 2008. It was directed by this guy Matt Reeves, who just directed The Batman with Robert Pattinson, and then he's done a couple other movies that I don't remember off the top of my head, but they kind of border that thriller suspense line. And I was watching the behind the scenes of Cloverfield because Cloverfield's has been shot as a found footage movie, so it's kind of like it's basically shaky cam, to make a long story short. And there's this one scene where basically it's a long story short of the movie. It's a shaky cam like monster movie,
And so there's this scene where the opening scene is like these people like at a party, and then like suddenly the lights go off and they're in the middle of New York, and then they hear these sirens burning or whatever, so they run out on the street.
and you basically see as they're like walking on the street, you see the head of the Statue of Liberty come flying in and smash through the middle of the street, and then like it hits a building or whatever, and then they don't even know what it is. They think it's a meteor, and then they got up close to it, like that's the head of the Statue of Liberty. So that whole scene, actually, like they built like a whole section of
Like a replica of like whatever, New York City or some part of it. And I also found out that like besides like the digital backlot that they shot it on, they had it on
they filmed the rest of it on like a couple like certain sections of LA actually, which is like funny because like yeah, there's only when we were like deciding like where to go and where to shoot because they were like I guess they had to jump all over the place in some respects for the movie.
there's only like a couple places of LA that look kind of like New York, but just like the whole thing of like there's so much that like comes into a movie which is like so cool. I even thought like half the time
like being because that was one of my I don't know what my true dream job is or whatever, but one of my like my top 3 was I wanted to be either an astronaut, which I can't even handle roller coasters, so that's kind of off the
Yeah.
list now. I either wanted to do directing or I wanted to be like touring musician or whatever. And so that was kind of I've always like kind of been into, that was what kind of got me into film, was movies like, whether it started with Lord of the Rings or even before I watched Lord of the Rings, even stuff like the Chronicles of Narnia, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That came out in like 2006, so that was probably one of the first movies because I didn't watch Lord of the Rings till later when I was older and whatever. But yeah, what about you, man? What are some of your
the movies that either inspired you or obviously like we're not directors or anything, but I feel like out of all my friends, like you know a lot about movies. Obviously, like Joe and Shane have their those are a couple other people that I would think of that like have their certain like niche uh certain like niche parts of genres of movies. Like even like when it comes to Martin Scorsese, Shane's like, oh yeah, like we just watched Killers of the Flower Moon, and I was like, man, I'm like that was a good movie, but I'm like it was long, and Shane's like, no, it was completely like, and he had all like the nuances down to like the racism that was going on in the movie and the dialogue and whatever. I guess that was a run-on sentence. But yeah, what was some of the movies that like inspired you to be like, oh, this is cool. Like I want to look more into it
Uh,
and stuff.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I definitely get into like directors. Like,
Yeah.
the first one was probably Quentin Tarantino. Watch
Yeah.
all of his movies.
Yeah, you know a lot more Tarantino than I ever did. Like I was so late to Pulp Fiction
Right.
and
Yeah, I've seen all of it.
Django and all that.
Yeah, I got into a Kubrick phase.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think my favorite director who's working right now is Denis Villeneuve, who
Yeah.
we've watched some of his movies. We've seen Dune, which is
Yeah.
a great movie, which I've gone and read the first two books after seeing that.
Yeah.
Blade Runner is amazing.
Yeah. Blade Runner 2049.
you
Or did
should-
he do the original Blade Runner?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
That was Ridley Scott, I think.
Oh, that's who it was.
Me and you definitely, we have a specific horror thing going on,
Yeah.
which I wanted to talk
We
about.
actually, yeah.
so-
Let's get it. Let's put that off to the side for now, because let's still talk about
Okay,
where you're going.
okay.
So you had so the first couple guys that you mentioned are all like really really solid stuff. So obviously, like I feel like you more than me, like I like the thriller, suspense, and obviously who doesn't love action, adventure, and whatever. But it seems like you even have like know a little bit more of like the artistic movies. So even like you'd say like the is it? It's not Dennis. What? How do you say it?
Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. Yeah, sorry. So he's a French.
He's a Frenchman.
French director. So
French
so he did. You know that movie Arrival, which like a lot of people if they haven't seen Arrival, it's like it's an alien movie, but it's not like. Well, it's an alien invasion movie, but it's not the typical one. It's very like existential and like and kind of like grim and moody, but it's very
Yeah, I'd say
very epic.
it's more about communicating with like an unknown species than it is like an invasion movie.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting. It's based on a book which I do want to read because I feel
Oh.
like
Huh.
it's the kind of story that makes sense as a book. It's about language, so
Yeah.
I definitely want to check that out at some point.
Yeah, but even like yeah, once again, so like Arrival, and then all the he did Prisoners, which is like so. I guess we could. I want to get into top fives. I guess I could have structured this a little bit better. But I guess so. Anyways, to agree with or just to add on to what Dan was saying, besides Denis Villeneuve, and then Stanley Kubrick, and then Quentin Tarantino, like you can't really get much better than that, honestly.
That's like those are all the big name directors.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So the other
I
ones,
watch so much stuff that I can't even
Yeah.
keep track of.
I would say you've probably watched more than me. Now I've probably watched a little bit more horror, but like I said, we will get to that in a couple minutes. But I would say other directors that I thought was so cool was Peter Jackson, obviously, who did like Lord of the Rings. I'm a pretty big Lord of the Rings fan, maybe a little bit bigger than you, so that's why I'm like pretty lenient to that. But even from like all the other, like not only do I love watching the extended editions, which are like almost 4 hours each, I'll go and watch like all the different behind the scenes footage. If you have the extended editions from Lord of the Rings, there's like tens of hours. Like probably there must be.
There's director's commentary, right, for all the movies?
Oh yeah, there's director's commentaries, and then like even the behind the scenes stuff. It's like it's categorized. So then they'll talk about like like filming in this location, and then figuring out like the Tolkien dialects to put them in the movie, and then each actor and like funny things that happened on sets and featurettes,
Right.
and then
you're talking-
building sets.
You're talking about what got you into movies as a kid. I feel like those things, when you rent a DVD, like Blockbuster was around.
Yeah,
whenever-
which honestly, no one who buys movies anymore or Blockbuster,
Right.
or even Redbox now.
Redbox is like
Yeah,
disappearing.
that's nuts.
But you'd run a DVD, and even if it would be some crappy movie that's like Spy Kids 2 or something,
Yeah,
you'd have the behind the scenes where they're just showing how they shot it all, and It's just so fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, that is a great word for it too, man. And it's like there's almost this like attached or this attachment of it, like it's like this wonder of like, wow, I can't believe that's actually like happening. People are doing this as we speak. Like even on a really random note, like one of our um, once again we got to get to horror, our top fives and just for movies, and then I also wanted to do TV shows because you have way better taste than me in TV shows.
All right.
You've gotten me on a lot of stuff, but yeah, that's what's so interesting is that there's so many aspects to just making a movie.
Yeah.
And so once again, like that's why like Lord of the Rings was so Peter Jackson who directed those. I would say Peter Jackson. Um, oh yeah, of course Steven Spielberg, and yeah, because that must have been the couple of the top three movies I would say is honestly now that I think about it, I would say Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because that was one of the first like action movies where like it was pretty like I could watch it. It was like pretty tame when I was probably watching it when I was like 10 years old or whatever. And then honestly, I would say this is probably a pretty obvious classic for a lot of people, but I would say Indiana Jones. Oh, The Lost Ark, that's what it is.
The Lost Ark.
Yeah, The Lost Ark.
I think that's the only one I have seen.
Yeah. So I would throw. Yeah, once again, like you can't really beat Stanley Kubrick.
I'll shout out the Coen brothers as well. I'm not sure how many movies you've seen by them.
Coen
They did No
brothers.
Country for Old Men, which was the movie.
The movie I
we were
haven't
talking
seen, which
about
I need
that
to.
you haven't seen.
Yeah.
And they've done a bunch of other stuff. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's another one.
Okay, I actually haven't heard of that.
Yeah. They did The Death of Stalin, which is like a kind of historical.
I've heard of that. Yeah. Yeah. Other random ones. Honestly, for horror, I would put Ari Aster up in there because his movies are not. Besides Beau is Afraid. Beau is Afraid, the most
Yeah.
confusing. It's like if you watched a movie and like you were on acid or some type of weird drug, but like you were sober watching it. It's the weirdest, just confusing. I can't get over that.
Yeah.
But his first two movies was freaking insane.
So we're gonna talk about it later, but yeah, me and Ben have gone to the theater to see a lot of movies. We saw
Yeah.
Ari Aster's first two movies, Hereditary and
Midsummer. Yeah.
which were both great. And then we just went to Beau is Afraid. I didn't look up anything about it because
Yeah, you're good. You go blind into movies.
go-
You don't watch trailers anymore.
I don't like watching trailers because I'm always like, I'll remember one scene and I'll be like, when's that part gonna happen?
Yeah.
And it messes up my experience.
Yeah.
So if it's a director I like Ari Aster, I'll go into it blind. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I like a good fever dream, like a drug trip, nothing makes sense kind
Yeah.
of movie. But not if it's gonna be 3 hours long.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, I understand, like, I guess the whole Beau's Afraid thing, I'm like, okay, it's just going over my head and I have to, like, accept that or whatever. So, it's funny. I guess I should have written this down so I could have had, like, an actual, like, straight up list of, like, specific directors. But other people I would just say, like, I think George Lucas is awesome and that stuff, too. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, so I wouldn't throw him in some of the most inspiring ones.
Edgar Wright, definitely for me. I also don't know. We started to watch Hot Fuzz. Were you there for that? Like a week ago?
You shot me a text and I wasn't home.
Okay. He's probably my favorite comedic director. He did that. He did Shaun of the Dead, which you've probably heard of.
Yeah.
He did Baby Driver, just another good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've seen Baby Driver, but I heard that was very solid. It's not like always it's just me and you's thing, but it's definitely something that like we I feel like I'm pretty pointed about. I'm like I'm gonna go see a movie. There's only a couple people I hit up, and definitely you're one of them. And that was one thing. Once again, going back to our Shakespeare plays, is that we didn't want to just film, do like a wide angle, kind of like this, And that's another thing about my podcast too. Is once I don't like being low tech, but also like for being into like movies and like even music and stuff, like I'm like, wow, I need to expand my horizons on that. Let's do top five movies, and we can just do.
Okay.
You can do one, and I can do one. So if you have to think about it for a little while.
So this, probably won't be in any particular order,
Okay.
but it'll just be the five that come
Yeah.
to the top of my head that I really love. I'll start with Tarantino. Inglourious Bastards is probably my favorite.
That's a really good one.
I can't even keep track anymore because I've seen it like 4 times, so I don't know how many times I saw it with you.
I've seen it probably twice with you.
But yeah, It's just perfectly shot. I really love the way they use language in that movie
Mm.
because it's everyone speaking the language that they would speak. So you have like the English and the American characters.
Yeah, and it's
They're
like
talking
broken
English.
English, or
Yeah. Then you have the Germans, and then obviously the French, and they play around with that by having like people try to go undercover, and
yeah,
I don't know. I just feel like they play with the idea a lot, and I really like it. Because when you watch the older movies, it's always like we watched Lawrence of Arabia recently.
yeah,
And it's just like you're going to Arabia, and everyone's just hello.
yeah, yeah. That is funny.
I don't know. It's one of those things that's just distracting every time.
Once again, my top five are just going to be kind of like in no particular order either.
But and I would add this to one movies that I like really got me going is honestly Swiss Family Robinson.
Can't say I've seen that.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh,
No.
it's an old movie. I think it was like it was like almost like Lawrence of Arabia old. Well, that was the 30s or 40s when it was made, right?
I don't remember when.
Okay, that's well.
I think it was
Swiss
like
Family Robinson is like a
60s.
family that gets shipwrecked on an island, and so they build this life and whatever, and then it just kind of it's about the whole movie is it's probably pretty long too, but it's about the ins and outs of their whole lives and whatever, and they have like pirates come and like try to take all their stuff and
All these like different like
exotic animals that like help them throughout their their time at this island. And there's this really cool scene where there's they have they're like bathing in this water. This is probably one of my biggest fears ever, and they run into an anaconda,
Yeah.
but it's a fully like 20-30 foot, like no CGI back in the 50s 60s 70s whenever it was made, and it just got this very whimsical cool like
when you watch like a movie like Mary Poppins or something.
there's this very like uppity vibe that's very like 70s ish and
Yeah.
whatnot.
I would say Lion the Witch and Wardrobe, Lord of the Rings,
Swiss Family Robinson and
Indiana Jones. So
I like spaghetti westerns a lot. Were you there when we went on the spaghetti western kick where we watched the three? We watched Fistful of Dollars, and Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and a bunch of films
no,
like that.
I've heard of the Good, Bad, and the Ugly though.
That's
I might have watched that.
okay. Well, that was gonna be my next one, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, just because
Is that so? Is it a slightly older movie?
it is. It's like 80s, 70s, 80s. I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice,
So-
good choice.
it's a classic definitely, but I don't know. Those movies are so classic that they're almost like they defined everything about the genre, like the shootouts.
Yeah,
It's just like it seems generic now, but
No,
when it came out, it was.
are those all Clint? Is Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Are those? Is that Clint Eastwood?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, that was okay.
yeah. So those are great.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so I guess I've mentioned it a couple times, but Indiana Jones is just so iconic. Even like the first opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he like quickly goes and like switches.
Switches the idol for like I don't know if he has like a weighted bag or whatever, and just it was really cool. Even the face melting scene of like the head Nazi guy was really cool. I was really scared of it. I remember when I wanted to watch it, my parents were like trying to shield my eyes, but I think it was I guess.
I was gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Temple of Doom or Raiders that got the PG-13 rating was a thing.
Yeah.
But there's just the score for all that stuff and whatever is so freaking cool.
Oh wow, that's John Williams, right?
Yeah,
You
which also
just-
reminds me, I have another one here.
You can't beat it. I feel like sometimes the music just makes those kind of movies, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. My next one will
Three
do
more.
The Shining, which is
Oh, I would
obviously-
nice. You took mine. Good
Yeah.
choice.
That's obviously classic. That's one of the first horror movies I think I ever
Yes.
saw. This was post Green Inferno, which we'll talk about,
Yeah. Nice.
but it was pretty
Yeah.
early on, and it's not so much that the movie's scary. It's just I love movies that are that atmospheric, where you
Yeah. Well said,
you
dude.
kind of watch it
Yeah.
and you're just in the world, and you feel like
Yeah.
you're stuck in that hut.
Yeah, man. Oof. Yeah, that is.
Yeah. So we'll get to horror later. But I would say for my third one,
I'm so glad that I kind of like, as I said the word score, I kind of triggered my own thoughts. But Inception from Chris Nolan.
Yeah.
So I also love like Interstellar.
I don't think
Um,
we mentioned Nolan earlier.
yeah,
it's-
we
it's-
didn't. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I put him in. And like I said, I love. I think the biggest movies that like made me love Chris Nolan the best is like obviously he has the Batman movies and he has Tenet and whatnot. But there's a couple. There's actually one that I've been trying to get you to see. Is one of his older movies called Memento, which
Right.
is this like I forget exactly what the plot is, but a guy wakes up, he has no memory, but he has all these like words and phrases tattooed on
I've
him.
seen the tattoos.
Yeah, and so that wasn't my favorite movie by him, but once again, Interstellar and especially I think Inception is just like untouchable. The score is incredible. The I think it's the I don't know exactly what the actual track is called. I can think of it in my head. I don't want to like. I know I'm not going to do it justice if I hum it out or whatever, but just Hans Zimmer, the freaking beast. So yeah, Inception would be my third.
Yeah, Inception is probably my favorite Nolan. I was trying to think if I like it or Interstellar more, because Interstellar is one of the first movies I think that we watched in the theaters together.
Yeah.
But anyways, my fourth movie is going to be No Country, I think, which
Yeah.
again we talked about it earlier. Ben hasn't seen it yet, so we'll make sure
Yeah.
that he sees it. It's one of those movies that just there's not much music. It's like a lot of silence, but a lot of tension and.
Yeah.
I showed him the scene with Anton Chigurh where he pops the guy with the air. So he's seen that much already. He's just a classic. I actually wrote an essay about that movie for my American cinema class in
Oh, did
freshman
you?
year of college.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
I did that and 2001, which
I've never seen 2001.
didn't quite make the top 5 for me, but that is a great movie, yeah.
Also, another thing. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Once again, 2001: A Space Odyssey. That must be a long movie, right?
That is a long movie.
Three
That's
and a half, or
like 3 hours, I think, yeah.
so. I mentioned Raiders.
You mentioned...
What was the first one?
So you mentioned Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, Raiders.
Yeah. And then I just mentioned Inception.
you
Okay.
said-
Yeah. Well, so I'll go with once again. I'll go with Prisoners. Incredibly, basically like dark crime. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal and like Hugh Jackman. Jake Gyllenhaal is a cop, and Hugh Jackman is this dad that's his kid has been basically kidnapped. Basically, talk about a movie with tension. The writing's incredible, and it has an incredible twist ending where it's just I'm like, this has to be one of the best like movies, literally of all time. And I think Jake Gyllenhaal is really cool. But just once again, incredibly well written, and it. I don't know if it got. I think it got a couple like Oscar nods and whatever for the overall in a performance or a nod for Best Picture or something. I'll have to once again. I should have a computer to fact check me, but that would be my fourth.
Okay. Last movie.
And it is tough. It's tough to say like top 5 and just like lay it
Yeah.
all out there.
Because
but
I really don't want to. I know I'm going to leave something off that I'm going to think of.
I know you're
immediately.
gonna hate it. Yeah, that's why I'm so glad I remembered Inception. Because Inception gives you that also that like awe-inspiring feel. Like once you see like the last the ending scene where you see his token that's like spinning on the table. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but and then the score rises and you're just like this like hits like a nerve for me. It strikes a chord.
Just because I'm thinking about it, I'll choose Hot Fuzz as my fifth one.
Yeah.
Just because I think that's. It's
And Hot
probably
Fuzz
my
is
favorite.
about what?
It's about a cop in England. It's kind of like a mystery, but it's just funny. I saw Scott Pilgrim versus the World when I was like 10.
Yeah.
That's by the same director. And I really loved that movie when I watched it for the first time, but I think I like it less now, just because it's
Yeah.
a little cringy, the humor sometimes a bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Hot Fuzz is probably my favorite comedy. Superbad is also up there, which is a classic.
Yeah.
Classic Judd Apatow.
Yeah. Right.
And of course, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which we haven't seen.
Oh,
in ages.
that's such a good one, Dan.
That's
Oh, that was such a good one, bro. Oh gosh.
so.
Man.
If you don't know, that's like a.
Such a funny horror comedy.
It's a parody
Oh.
of horror movies almost, where like
It's
the
kind of like
killers are-
Scary Movie.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
The killers are accidentally killing people, but
Yeah.
you should check it out if you haven't seen it before.
It's so good. Cool. So, yeah, and then I guess my fifth one, which will be going as well. I guess we can go into the horror segment now, but I would say Hereditary by Ari Aster. These probably basically one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. Not just because of jump scares, but the overall mood and stuff. Now, for some of my friends, you know, it's been very interesting because like kind of as I grow older, I was kind of brought up to like not entertain like the don't watch those dark movies and those things. But like, I just have an itch sometimes that I need to scratch. Like obviously we're a couple days after Halloween and whatnot, but I think just the last couple years, I don't know. I've just kind of I like pushing myself to that edge. But once again, Hereditary is not just like there's different like tiers basically of horror movies, and it comes to the point where like you'll have like movies that have like really good jump scares. So like, oh cool, like if I want to get like scared or be like at like a late night at a friend's house like with popcorn and you want to get scared, like absolutely, like go for it. But then there's also movies that you're just like, oh wow, like the overall tone of this movie is just very, very, you know, sinister, you know, as to you know, pun intended, I guess. And then there are some movies where you're just like, I want to see if I can make it through this movie.
Yeah.
which I've had a couple of those.
So we should talk about what are the worst ones we've seen.
And then also like what was like our intro to horror movie.
We
Get
saw
into that.
Interstellar together.
Yeah.
And I remember the Green Inferno trailer came on. And there's a scene
Yeah.
with a guy in a boat.
In
who,
a
like,
canoe,
pops
just the
up.
trailer, yeah.
He pops up, he has a scary face. And that scared you so much just
Yeah.
in the trailer.
I think I spilt my popcorn like with soda
You're
on
like,
my pants.
We have to go see this
Yeah.
when it comes out. We have to. So we went and saw it. I mean, it's memorable because it was the first one we saw, but honestly,
Yeah.
it wasn't a great horror movie. It's almost like they...
Yeah. It depends on what people mean as great horror movies, but like we want like you need a combo of all three, you know?
Yeah. So I'd say the gore was there because there's one
Yeah,
scene,
that movie is very gory. Yeah.
there's one scene where like a guy's getting his limbs chopped off and like they're feeding him his eyeballs or something
Yeah.
like that. But
Basically, it's like for anyone who, if anyone's curious and wants to see it, it's like activists that go down to the Amazon and basically shit goes down from there, and it's very very crazy and very nuts. But so that was like the first one. And obviously, it was so funny too because like even in the trailer when I look back on it now, I'm like, oh yeah, that is a little scary. But I'm very like a lot of people that like have heard that like I'm a big horror fan or whatever. Like, oh, you must be this like. You can sit through anything, which like to be fair, I have sitting through some like pretty rough movies.
yeah.
But but I get scared very easily. And like when I go with either you or some of my other friends, like you guys won't be you'll be a little bit more like like unsettled or
Right.
whatever. But I'm just like whoa, like you're watching like even when we were watching like it, I'd be like in the movie theaters, I'll like throwing this up, I'll hug my knees, you know, I can't be flexible at all. And I'll be like this. I can't even do it because the couch I'm slipping. But I'll be like bundled up, whatever, in the movie theater, and I'll be like trembling in my boots, and then I'll just be looking at Dan, and he'll be like,
Yeah.
he'll just stick his neck back a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not jumpy. There have been a lot of points where I've had to look away from the screen. I'm trying to think, what movie did... I think it was Terrifier 2,
Oh.
where there was a scene where I just looked over at Shane and he was like... he was like covered up, he was not engaging with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say
Yeah.
the worst horror movies I've ever seen, Hereditary, well, it's probably one of my favorites.
But it's one of the-
definitely psychologically affecting, just because
Yeah.
it's so personal. But other than that,
It's psychological horror that does it for me too, because like when I can't sleep at night, I'm just like, oh, that did it.
I would say the things that left me the most like that were like the old episodes of Black Mirror, which I know you watched recently.
Yeah.
But I watched that when I was like 13.
Yeah, no.
So like the
for sure.
episode where like the White Christmas one where he gets stuck in that
Yeah.
infinite loop for like 100 million years. I watched that and I was just sitting in my bed, like eyes wide open.
You're like, am I in a simulation?
So that was like, early stuff. But you
Yeah.
suggested the movie Martyrs to me. We didn't actually
Oh,
watch it together.
Boy.
You watched it with Shane.
Yeah,
and
Shane DNF'd it.
Shane did not finish
Yeah.
that movie. I did finish that movie, although it was.
You watched it by
I
yourself,
watched
bro.
it by
That was
myself.
crazy. Yeah, you're probably just like late at night. You're like, all right, cool. Ben said this was pretty serious, and I remember I was like so scared to watch it. I couldn't watch it by myself. So I'm like, all right, let's go watch it together. And then for some reason, like you couldn't make it. You weren't there or whatever. And I'm like, all right, we're still gonna do it, and da 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 da. And yeah, Martyrs is not for the faint of heart. And the thing is, like, it's just strange because there's this like theme of, once again, I'm no horror expert or movie expert, just kind of what I've seen. Just out of curiosity, I kind of kept track of like all the movies I've seen, all the horror movies I've seen. I've seen about like 30 of them now. And once again, I can't describe it. There's just like this weird scratching this itch and liking to push myself and see what's going on. But honestly, I like horror. I think just because it's like, in certain aspects, like if you watch the right type of horror movies, it's very raw. Just the plot, the acting, and oftentimes the director is trying to show you something in the mix of whatever chaos and whatever. And so I would look at like, like scary, like jump scare movies that like I would say are like pretty big ones, or ones that we watch together. Even just at your house, when I would put The Conjuring 2 or anything from The Conjuring, really. Like, I remember I literally, we were watching The Conjuring 2, and there's a scene, basically the antagonist in the movie is this kind of demonic looking nun. And basically, you know that this demon's in this office, and this guy's looking around. And I'm just like, oh, like, I can't, like, I knew that, like, the jump scare, I'm like, I can't do this, Dan, I can't do it. And then the jump scare finally hits you, and then you're like, oh, okay, like it happened, like it scared me, but now I can like almost relax a little bit. But The Conjuring, I think, has the best well done jump scares. And then I would throw like movies like, It one parts 1 and 2, movie you haven't watched yet, Sinister. I put The Shining as like just a very good psychological movie where there's not a ton of gore, and there's not a lot of jump scares, but the overall brood and the writing and the story is very, movie. I don't read a lot of Stephen King, but he is one of the, known as the king of horror in that sense.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll shout out one more movie that we watched this year, actually. Was Talk to Me.
yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
That was a great, I would say it fits more into the first category, but it also does have, jump scare moments and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But,
I think that was really well done. And that was done by Australian YouTubers. They
right.
got a license.
And I have heard that. I haven't looked that much into actually their YouTube.
They actually went on
channel.
Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went on Rogan a couple weeks ago. I didn't listen to it, but yeah, there's just something about, I would say my first, we don't have to do a top horror thing, but the best ones that I've considered, like names I'd throw out there is like, once again, Stanley Kubrick with The Shining, but he also has this other movie called, which is not, once again, a movie I wouldn't recommend to anyone if you have like, if you have certain, it's just like there are certain themes in it that are like pretty mature, but this movie called Eyes Wide Shut, which is about kind of like, it's a commentary basically on like secret societies and what's actually going on and stuff, because Stanley Kubrick always has movies that like makes you think and kind of sits with you. But Eyes Wide Shut was a movie, once again, where it's just like, it's just like the plot itself is just very like murky and moody. And so movies that make you think, I would say, once again, like, because Stanley Kubrick movies are not specifically horror, but he's extremely good at, and The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut were made like almost 30 years ago, or 20 years ago at this point, So that's kind of, I was right, yeah. It was 90s.
Yeah.
90s or 80s. Eyes Wide Shut was 98 and
Eyes
Shining
Wide Shut
80.
was, it was late 90s. It was like his last one, though. So
Yeah, which is so important for you to watch it, because like people say the reason why like he made that movie, and people are like, well, he died mysteriously because it was a big commentary on like what goes on with like the rich and the elites. They have all these crazy rituals and sex parties and all this stuff. And once again, it's a mature movie, but like it really did, like not open my eyes, but give like a little bit of language to like, oh, that's weird. And there's so many cool things like the way that the way he films like that stuff. Once again, like Christopher Nolan, like other people, it's like it's art, dude. Like
Yeah.
there's so many like even subliminal stuff going on, whatever. On a very random note, another movie that I would put as sleepers for like favorite movies of mine that you actually would man, I've been picking my nose throughout the whole podcast. Sorry guys, I've had some itches, just promise. Not a lot of boogers. But Super 8 by
Right, that's a J.J. Abrams. I've seen. I think I
Yeah.
have seen the trailer for that. You might have showed it to me at some
Yeah.
point. But
yeah, sorry, I just
Yeah.
had to throw that in there, guys, because that's pretty iconic. But once again, just that we've seen like a ton of movies, but some of like the more accessible horror that like even the normal person could watch is they're solid, but like the Conjurings or the and even ones like say like Sinister or I haven't watched as many of them, but like either Saw or Paranormal Activity, like kind of more like just kind of like jump scary, like try to get an emotional. I've been trying to watch this movie, The Ring. I've had it on Tubi for a while, which also Tubi has like a lot of great
Tubi
stuff for
is-
horror. Also, they have this other one called Shutter, like Shuddering, and it's strictly only horror. So I found that interesting. But once again, some like doozies that like me and Dan have like we've watched them basically all together, or all of these. But once again, Talk to Me, which is a very new one. Barbarian, a very accessible,
Barbarian was great.
just like something fun to watch with your friends. And then there's some of the darker and more intense ones like Hereditary and Midsummer and Martyrs. This movie called A Serbian Film, which I would never have anyone. Oh, somebody's calling me. Hey Thibodeau, I'm doing a podcast with Dan now. We're live. I love you, and I'll call you in a few. Okay. All right. Bye. Shout out to our boy Tibbs, first ever guest. That's why we couldn't leave him hanging. But which is funny because Nate's not really a horror guy. He's like, why are you guys always watching these horror movies? I'm like, come watch it with us. And he's like, nah. But also, I think I've probably like
It's
amped it
a-
up so much.
Yeah, I think a specific taste. I think anyone will watch a drama or a comedy, but a horror is like
Yeah. Once again, I just don't know. There's just something in me that's like kind of really drawn to that, which maybe that's a bad thing.
I
But,
don't think it's necessarily a bad thing at all.
Yeah. Cool.
I mean, you're not watching them like I need to see blood. I
Yeah.
need to- it's just morbid curiosity.
Yeah, that's what it is. Honestly, man.
Yeah.
Like I honestly do believe that.
Like when it comes to those kind of movies, if you have too much violence, it's almost just comical at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like even if it
Like
is
a Terrifier almost.
Yeah, yeah. Like even if it is the stuff that's happening should be the most horrific thing you've ever seen, you just become kind of desensitized to it after.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this entire movie is people getting their faces ripped off. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have an effect on me anymore.
Yeah, I know. But once again, even like a movie like Martyrs, like is kind of like flirts with that level or basically kind of is because it's so rough. Just with these two
Yeah,
individuals just going through literal hell.
I'd
But
say
then like I remember watching like the behind the scenes, and it's actually a French film because there are some French films like I think Pascal Laurier is the director that did Martyrs, but there's a couple other people that are absolutely nuts. This guy Gaspar Noé, who did this movie Irreversible, which has this like they're just known for just like vile, insane, crazy stuff that's like let's try to like fit this into a movie and see if we can get away with it. And this other guy, Gaspar Noé. I'm trying to think who this other guy is. He's also nuts. Oh, Lars von Trier, where it's just insane. Where it comes to just like mutilation of different appendages and body parts. Like, all right, this isn't even plot anymore. Once again, that's why I love movies like Hereditary, even Midsummer, where I'm like, oh wow, this is like really cool, like what's going on, and it like sticks with you, and it's very like in a way, like it does open to your mind about some some of these things, because it's like, you know, even when it's like war or all these other things going on, it's like it's like in real life, like it's not censored, you know. So it's like, oh yeah, let's do even if like, you know, even if you watch a movie like, whether it's like a war movie like Dunkirk or Black Hawk Down or Saving Private Ryan, and be like, wow, that was like incredibly like graphic and whatever. It's like kind of what it is, but also like it's weird because at the same time I'm like, everything doesn't have to be violent and blood and guts everywhere, but also there are movies that do that really well.
Yeah.
Even Talk to Me, dude, has not a lot of blood and guts and whatever.
Not really.
And that was like a pretty new movie and whatever. So it was a little bit of a bummer because when we went to we did our Halloween party, me and Shane dressed up as well, even Thibodeau had a really good another good kind of like sleeper, kind of basically a horror movie. Thibodeau was Patrick Bateman.
Yeah, he was American
From
Psycho,
American
Patrick
Psycho.
Bateman.
Yeah.
Which is probably, if you had Tibbs on the movie podcast and you asked him what his favorite movie was,
Yeah, he would throw that.
he
in
would
there.
throw that in his top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Because he loves quoting that movie.
Yeah. Paul Allen. And yeah, man. So I think really quickly, just to wrap up, if we wanted to talk about maybe a couple TV shows, I guess we could give like 3 TV shows. Once again, like it's been really cool, man. Especially just watching movies and stuff. It's like very stress free, and I just love it. And I always think about like, well, how did they build this set, and how do they do this, and how do they do that? And it's just so cool. But there's just so much that goes into movies sometimes where it just seems like it's just like overwhelming.
Yeah.
And stuff. So one of my, you know, I have to, I guess I wasn't going to lead with this one, but I have to do it, man. One of my favorite shows of all time, Lost.
Yeah.
Sonia, if you're watching this, shout out to you, Lost reference.
I watched, I think, the first 4 seasons of Lost, and
Yeah.
I just...
Kind of like
I
Thrones, it started like last season, doesn't have the strongest ending, but
Yeah. But I always thought that was a classic show.
yeah.
It was like one of the earliest serialized in that like every episode was not like its own episodic thing.
Yeah.
It was like a continued story.
Yeah, you couldn't miss an episode.
So
Yeah.
it was really revolutionary in that regard.
Mm.
Yeah, I like that show a lot. It's just, I don't know. It's the whole mystery box thing with J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Which is like sometimes it doesn't deliver as much. Like
Yeah.
I said, I haven't actually seen the last 2 seasons, so I won't make.
No, you're
comments.
right though. You're right.
I do know that like the finale is not as bad as some people
Yeah. Yeah.
made it out to be, but
I'm trying to think, what was the movie that made him huge? Because
Well,
he
we just-
wrote, and I think he had one of the original ideas for Lost.
yeah, and we just watched Cloverfield. I'm not sure if that was before. or after.
Cloverfield was big and Lost.
and I
then-
know he did Star Trek pretty soon after that.
Yeah,
which was
keep
big.
going on that, and I'm going to actually look that up because I'm actually very curious. Because I think, yeah, he did Cloverfield and then Lost, and then he did Super 8, obviously,
Yeah,
which was a really cool, like, fun, like, that was almost like, that was kind of like modern day, like, E.T. Almost modern day Stranger Things type of vibe,
I
if you
have
think about it.
yeah. It seems like Stranger Things from what I've seen of it. Which
Oh, J.J. Abrams, one of my favorite movies, like kind of my runner-ups, is Mission Impossible 3, which is like one of the really intense like Tom Cruise movies. But I think, oh, you know what? So he was involved in, he did one of the Star Wars. I think he did.
he did Force Awakens.
I think he did. Yeah, number 7. But then he did the new Star Treks as well. So, which I'm actually not a huge Star Trek fan.
I didn't really. I saw the second movie he made, Into Darkness, and it
Which was
alright.
it looked awesome.
Yeah.
It looked cool.
The only weird thing is that like Star Trek is like not really Star Wars. It's not really like a huge action franchise.
Yeah.
But then every time they make a movie, they try to make it like that.
Right.
It's just kind of like they have these like crappy little plastic like
Yeah.
phase guns, and it's like this is not
Yeah.
meant to be a die-hard action movie.
Right.
But you can't make a movie that's like the TV show that's
Yeah.
just like slow.
And I think just because of Lost ending, like I remember I still follow this, like just because I'm back on Facebook a little bit now,
more because I like just for like marketplace. And one of these groups is lost in capital letters. ... I got it, and it's like just like a whole group of like lost like fanatics.
I love those
Whatever.
Facebook groups for shows that have ended like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
People are still trying to like wring out every piece of discussion.
yeah, and it's like I don't know if there's like much more you can do, man. But that was yeah, I would say Lost, huge
Okay.
one for me.
So my favorite shows of all time, which I can't decide between them, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which is a bit
Oof.
generic, but generic for a reason, you know?
You guys know like that, especially you, Shane and Joe, like know the. Well, I guess I'd throw Tibbs in there too. Like you know like the ins and outs and like what's happening behind the scenes. Because I'm a little slower. I'm like, wait, why is Lalo doing this? And Shane's like, dude, let's go da 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 da.
Yeah, well, me and Shane have both seen Better Call Saul, I think.
And you've watched it through multiple times.
I've watched it through multiple times. I watched it again with Tibbs. I watched it a third and a fourth time. So.
No.
But Better Call Saul is one of those shows where I loved Breaking Bad. I caught that at the beginning of the 5th season, so I only saw one season of that live.
Yeah.
But Better Call Saul, I was there day one. I feel like you have a different experience with a show when you
Yeah.
watch it like that.
Absolutely.
So you almost remember, like, I remember season 1 starting when we were seniors in high school. And
Yeah, I remember I would go home, dude, and I would like I couldn't wait to like, I would have like rush to get like my homework done so I could go watch Lost.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Yeah, and then I would write like the numbers for. Ooh, I wonder if I can remember. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 40. Wow, I think I
Yeah,
got it.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think that's actually right. Damn. So okay, so that's like your top two. Okay, I'll throw my other just to wrap things up. I don't know how long we are, but we I would say I'd just to be lame. I would say The Office. Just and the funny thing is like like another guy I had on here. Do we both know? David. He's like, yeah, I watched The Office like 6 or 7 times all the way through. I'm like, I saw it through maybe twice,
Yeah.
maybe, and I'll just like go through like favorite episodes here and there. I haven't looked at it like recently, but like here and there, I'll just see stuff on YouTube. There's like Office bloopers or like Jim best moments, and they'll be like part 1 through 14, and each one's like a 10-minute long
Yeah.
video, and I'll just go through all that. So I would throw in Lost there too. You like I said, you gave 2 already, so yeah, give one more, and then.
Well, I'll give 3 more real quick, and I won't elaborate.
Yeah,
just
no,
to
that's
get it
fine.
through.
No, that's fine. We got time.
So for comedies, Always Sunny and Community are probably my 2 favorites.
Oh, Community, yes.
Community, I think
You guys
we've
got
all
me
seen.
onto that.
Yeah.
It took me a while, but also you got me into Breaking Bad. I remember I was a little hesitant at first because, in like a funny way, which is it's so funny now because, like, the biggest thing about Breaking Bad was like, well, it's depressing because like Walt's dying from cancer, and he's neglecting his family and he's selling meth, which is the point of the show. And then people are like, Ben, I don't want to watch people get like sawn in half or watch this like ritual. I'm like, it's just a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's just a TV show. So
I
that's
think-
for one funny way where I am kind of inconsistent.
I think the first season of Breaking Bad is almost like it starts off so brutal. There's like the
Yeah.
bathtub scene in like the 2nd episode
Yes,
where all the
yes.
guests fall down. It makes you think it's gonna be like just a vile, extremely violent show when really it isn't.
Yeah.
A lot of it is slower.
Once again, that's like really, but it's really well placed.
Yeah.
And once again, it's all up to whatever directors and what stuff people want to do, and that's why in some funny reasons why I'm like, yeah, Hollywood is terrible. Like some of the stuff that we glorify in TV and now I'm like, oh, I guess I am inconsistent in some areas, but like sometimes it just really makes the story come alive in a way that it doesn't. Like even once again mentioning Saving Private Ryan, there's this video where Steven Spielberg like showed like the beginning D-Day opening sequence to veterans, and they're like, yeah, that's incredibly accurate,
Yeah.
like ridiculously accurate, and yeah, that's nuts. So you had a couple more.
Yeah, so I'll shout out the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. Could have been my favorite. Honestly, we could do another whole podcast about TV shows. We could do another whole podcast about
Maybe we'll have to do it and have more people on.
yeah. But my one final shout out, my actual one, will be Chernobyl on HBO.
Oh,
Dan, that was yes.
which is it's only 5 episodes.
Oh, that's so good, dude.
It's just a mini series, but I've watched it 3 times. I think Ben has seen it as well.
Yeah. You guys once again, you got me on all the TV. You got me on Breaking Bad, Chernobyl. I didn't finish Game of Thrones. I got up to basically where you said. It was
And
funny
season 4,
for
yeah.
so long. I was just like, there's too much like crazy swearing and the stuff going on, and then I just like, unfortunately, being a bad boy, I'm like, I have to go and see this because I really got to see what's going on. So, what I was also going to mention is that I guess this could be, I don't know if you were going to mention this, House of the Dragon.
Right.
That's like another thing where I was gonna mention earlier, is like the imagine like all the sets and building and stuff they have to do that they're doing right now, because House of the Dragon doesn't come out till what, next summer or this
Yeah.
summer coming up. Yeah.
So it'll be a 2-year gap. I mean, I know some of that was like COVID stuff. But
Yeah.
still. It's crazy. It's like 10 episodes, and every episode is like movie quality, honestly.
Yeah.
If anything, like CGI for movies has gotten worse, and it's gotten better for TV shows. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's like the dragons in that show, like 15
Incredible,
years ago.
dude.
You wouldn't
Oh, now,
expect that in
yeah,
a TV
back
show
then,
at all.
yeah. Mm.
It's just so crazy and probably so expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only didn't mention that because it's only been 1 season. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say it's your favorite when you don't even know if most of it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be pessimistic, but
Yeah. Well, it's high expectations, from what was in the past. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we're not just doing top 3, but another sleeper I would say, because you mentioned Chernobyl, which was really good, Dan. Talk about like something that was incredibly accurately done. And I
Yeah.
don't even know half of the plot or half the behind the scenes stuff. Like Joe's like, oh yeah, well I can tell you what was going on there, and
I think they do have a podcast, which I do want to mention. Better Call Saul was the only show where like I listened to the behind the scenes podcast,
really,
and it's really interesting if you're interested in like just the nitty gritty of how they get all that stuff done. So it sounds like they're in constant time pressure to just
yeah, it's probably insanely stressful.
yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, you can't be using, there's like time constraints for everything. Yeah, so another really kind of like an underrated sleeper is The People versus O.J. Simpson. So it's like a whole dramatized version of that whole trial. It's like 8 or 9 episodes, and it's just like this really solid like dramatization of everything that was going on. And then at the end of the ending episode, it it shows like all the actors and like what they actually were, the people they were actually portraying. So I just thought that was so cool. I hadn't known a lot about the OJ case like until we were going into it. And then for my other, like, once again, I think I mentioned, I already mentioned Lost, OJ Simpson, and The Office. But I think for my top 3, along with The Office and Lost, is I would say Ozark. Now it's funny because like in this way, I know that we'll never agree, because like some people, like, I've never seen someone like Breaking Bad and like Ozark. It's always one or the other, because they're about similar things. Like Ozark is more money laundering and has a little bit more action into it. And Breaking Bad, that's what's so cool about Breaking Bad too, is that it's so, and probably Better Call Saul, is that like unless you like really like listen and pay attention, like there's so much like tension behind like all these drug deals going on basically, and like people don't like realize that, don't live in that world. So when I said that, Ozark is just incredible, like Jason Bateman. Once again, if you like, that has a lot of cool twists and turns in it. Once again, objectively, I like Ozark more, but I could see the writing for Breaking Bad is a little bit more, slightly more classy. That's still great. Once again, Stranger Things, like really cool show too. There's a couple like shows about just some serial killer stuff and whatever. But Community, awesome, great. And just some really, it's gonna drive me crazy. I don't want to pull it up on my phone, but like I said, I got to be more prepared next time. But there's just so many cool things about, because movies can just help you, like it can give you like so much entertainment, but then it can also make you think, can make you cry. It also can like make you like want to do things, and even be whether obviously like not when you watch The Green Inferno, you're not like maybe I'm never going to be an activist. Maybe I'm just going to stay. I'm never going to go on a plane, do any of this stuff. It's like, no, man. That's like, there's just so many cool stuff. I even think of even old TV shows. Like you were a big fan of The Walking Dead. I started it, didn't finish it. Like our friend Joe loves this this series called The Unit, which has the Allstate guy, and just even old 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. So there's so many other cool things going on. Once again, even like Netflix series that I'm even in the middle of right now. I'm going through Peaky Blinders, which is was a pretty intense show, but I've been putting it off for a while. But now I'm just like, I just love good TV, man. Like I know sometimes there's like some crazy elements and a lot of stuff, but it's just a blast and like been like so much fun.
Yeah.
And whatever.
I think TV can hit like a different itch almost. Like movies are maybe more exciting, but TV it's just the same characters.
Yeah, you keep coming back and you get used to them almost.
You get used to them, and I feel like there's so much more depth you can just go into than
Because you have so much more
you
time.
have so much more time.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. That was cool. That was really well said, man. Well, thanks, Dan. This was awesome. This was really cool, man. Like I said, I didn't, I know, once again, I know that you love, like, movies and film and all that jazz. And, we're no critics or whatever. But it's just fun to go and talk about stuff you love. And I appreciate you coming on, man. And next time, whether we're talking about, like, TV shows or whatever, I'm sure we can grab, whether Joe or somebody else or other people. And, yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on.
All right, yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you for another episode, and I will see you next time.